Owls in the Family, Chapter 4, Part 2. And I put a picture on the front of sort of a half grown great horned owlet, um, just so you can keep that in mind when we're thinking about Wool today and what he would have looked like. Okay, just before we start reading today, I just want to go over a few different things about owls, some owl fun facts for kids. There's about, in the world, 200 different owl species. So you know some of those: snowy owl, burrowing owl. Owls are active at night, so that means they're called nocturnal. We talked about this before. A group of owls is called a parliament. Most owls hunt insects, small mammals, and other birds. Some owl species hunt fish, not very many. Owls have powerful talons, which are claws that help them catch and kill prey. We talked about that as well. They have large eyes and a flat face. Remember, that flat face is a sound catcher. Owls can turn their heads as much as 270 degrees. So if an owl is looking, so if this is its head here, and I'm just looking at the owl from on top, if their eyes are on the front there, it can turn the eyes almost all the way around one way with its head, and then turn it around almost all the other way in the other direction. So 350 degrees. Owls can turn their head as much as 270 degrees. So that means almost all the way in a circle back to the beginning, but not quite. Owls are farsighted, meaning they can't see things close to their eyes clearly. Owls are very quiet in flight compared to other birds of prey. The color of owls' feathers helps them blend into their environment. We've talked about camouflage. And barn owls can be recognized by their heart-shaped face. And I know in this story we're talking about great horned owls, but I just wanted to show you a cool fact about barn owls. So this is what they talk about when they talk about the heart-shaped face. It sort of looks like a heart. And barn owls are the most common owl in Canada. And what's really interesting about barn owls is that they have this brownish color on the outer part of them, but underneath their wings, they are completely white. And with all birds, there's always a reason for the adaptations they have. And this is so that when they fly at night, imagine, just like this one, it's black outside, and in farmlands and things like that, there's no light, so it's very dark outside. And when an owl flies above, all of a sudden there is just this flash of white. And what happens is this stuns their prey by making them just freeze for a second or two, because they're not quite sure what they're seeing. And also the owl makes a screeching noise, which also makes the animal, the mouse or the rat, freeze for a second, and that gives the owl the advantage to pounce down and grab that prey. Now, in olden days, 100 or more years ago, people would see barn owls flying at night, but they did not think that they were owls at first. And so what they actually thought. So think about this. You're out at nighttime and all of a sudden something white kind of floats by you very quietly. What would you think that is? Starts with a G. Right. So people actually sometimes thought they saw ghosts when really it was a barn owl flying in front of them. And I have been driving in the dark and have seen an owl pass in front of my car at nighttime. And really it just looks like a flash of white, and you kind of blink your eyes for a second and you think, is that a ghost? And you're, oh no, that must be an owl. So that's kind of a cool fact about owls. Last time we left off with Wool getting the new cage, and he was pretty miserable. So Billy tried putting some pigeons in to keep him company, but that didn't work out so well. So we're going to start right here today. About 2 weeks later, the problem solved itself. It was a Tuesday and I was biking home from school along the alley behind our block. As I came along, I saw a couple of kids standing beside a big oil drum and dropping stones into it. One of the kids was Georgie Barnes, but the other was a big kid I didn't know. Georgie saw me coming and gave a yell. "Hi, Billy, come on over here and have some fun." What those two kids were doing wasn't fun at all. In the bottom of a barrel was a baby owl, and for a minute I thought it was Wool, until I saw it was smaller and a lot darker in color. It was the dirtiest bird I ever saw. Its feathers were all ruffled and broken, and it was smeared with oil. The kids were dropping stones on it, and every time a stone hit, it would scrunch down and make a weepy noise, like a tin whistle with a tremble in it. I wanted to tell them to stop dropping stones, but I knew that would mean a fight. And I knew I couldn't lick the two of them. That means he couldn't beat them. "Where'd you get it?" I asked the big kid. "What's it to you, Shorty?" "Well," I said, "I have a kind of a zoo at my place, and I sure could use an owl." "What you gimme for him?" "Give you my scout knife." "Let's have a look." I showed it to him, and he opened all the blades, and then he said, "It ain't much good. But this here owl ain't much good either. Pretty near dead. Okay, kid, it's yours." So there's a picture of the oil drum, and the owl is inside in the bottom of it. And this looks like it is Georgie Barnes right here, and here's Billy. Funny how some kids are. 1 minute, Georgie Barnes was trying to kill the little owl with stones. But the moment I bought it, he began to act as if he wanted to be its nurse. He climbed into the barrel and handed it out to me, and then he followed me home and helped me clean some of the oil off of it with a rag. He told me the big kid had found an owl's nest in a bluff near Sutherland and had shot the old owl and all but one of the young ones with his .22 rifle. He only brought the last young one home as a sort of joke he was going to play on his dog. It was a pretty sick little owl. I guess it hadn't eaten anything for a long time. And the stones and the oil hadn't done it any good either. It was too sick to sit on a branch of the tree in Wool's cage, so I put it on the floor of the cage while I went to the house to get some hamburger for it. When I got back, the new owl was lying on its side, and Wool was standing over it. I thought he must have taken a whack at it, but Georgie said no, that wasn't what had happened. Georgie said the new owl had just fallen over by itself, and when Georgie tried to pick it up again, Wool jumped down out of the tree and wouldn't let Georgie near it. When I went into the cage and held some meat out toward the new owl, Wool hunched down, spread his wings, and hissed at me as if he were saying, "You leave that bird alone, or you'll have me to deal with." "Easy there," I told him. "Take it easy, Wool. This little fella's hungry, and I'm just going to feed him." I don't know if Wool understood me, but he stopped hissing anyway. I held some bits of hamburger against the new owl's beak, and after a while he took a piece. Finally, he ate the whole lot, and then he staggered to his feet and stood there, swaying back and forth. Before I could touch him, Wool sidled over until the new owl was leaning right against him. Then the new bird closed his eyes and seemed to go to sleep. That's the way we left them. By the next morning, the new owl was up on the branch with Wool, and from that time on, Wool was never lonely. When Dad got home from the office that evening, I told him all about it. I told him the new one was called Weeps because of the weepy whistle noise he made all the time. 2 owls, my father cried, and banged his hand against his forehead. Now we'll never get another maid. All right, Billy, but no more owls, you understand? He needn't have worried. 2 owls was all I wanted anyway. All right, so you have a question today, and our question has to do with inferring. So in the story, there's an interesting thing that happens. Georgie Barnes starts out hurting this little owl, dropping stones on him, calling it almost dead and no good. But then, the minute that Billy gets the owl, Georgie Barnes follows him home and helps clean off the owl. So this is a big switch in behavior. So what I want you to think about is, why did Georgie Barnes switch from hurting the owl to helping the owl? So when we infer, the answer is not in the book. But we can think about things that we know. We can think about, well, what do we know about kids? What do we know about boys? What do we know about bullies? Because it sounded like Georgie Barnes was a bit of a bully. And what do we know about group behavior? So what happens when people are in different groups of people? Do they behave differently? Okay? So I want you to think about why Georgie Barnes switched from hurting the owl to helping the owl, and that is your question for today.